It's January 21st. I've got 15 movies on the list that I've watched so far this month. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of them are 2025 releases. So, guys, I've been grinding. I've been grinding on my movie watching. It's exhausting work.
I don't think I've ever drunk champagne before breakfast before. With breakfast on several occasions. But never before.
Oh, I've got a wonderful idea.
Hello, welcome back to the Movies for Breakfast podcast. I'm your host, Christy, and today we're talking about It Was Just an Accident. First off, sorry for the delay in posting. It's been a couple of weeks since my Marty Supreme episode. A couple crazy things happened, but we're back on track. I'm double recording episodes today, so don't even worry. It's all coming to you soon. If you're new to the podcast, thank you for being here. The way that I normally do an episode on a full movie is to discuss it spoiler-free for a little bit and then give a spoiler warning and then get into a detailed plot synopsis. And as I go through the plot synopsis, I add in my analysis and review, discuss the themes of the movie, discuss the filmmaking techniques, etc. So I'm going to do that just like usual today. Let's start with my spoiler-free thoughts and just general discussion of It Was Just an Accident. If you haven't heard about this movie somehow, it won the Palme d'Or at Cannes, I think, or was it the Grand Prix? I always get those two confused. I think it won the Palme d'Or. It won the top prize at the Cannes Film Festival this year, ahead of Sentimental Value, which I also loved. You can go check out my episode on Sentimental Value. If you go see it, you should go see it. This film was made in Iran in secret by Jafar Panahi. He's an Iranian filmmaker. He has made films in the past that were implicitly or explicitly critical of the Iranian regime. He's been in political trouble in Iran for his filmmaking activity, and this was kind of his most explicitly rebellious, explicitly political film to date. It's a thriller in some ways. It's also a drama. It's also quite funny, and it explores themes of justice, redemption, trauma, rage, forgiveness, all in the context of Iranian political violence. It's a really nice 106-minute runtime. I love a short runtime, especially when it's packed full of really valuable moments like this movie was, in my opinion. It was really great. I loved it. I was moved by it. I was totally captivated by it in the moment. I won't say too much about the plot, but I want to give some more background on Panahi, the filmmaker. Sorry if I'm reading off my phone a little bit. I just don't want to get any of these facts wrong. In 2010, he had been sentenced to prison and given a 20-year ban on making films. By 2022, he had not served his prison sentence. I don't know exactly what the story is there, but he was arrested in 2022, and this garnered a lot of criticism internationally because people know him and his films. He was detained for 7 months and then released in February 2023 after going on a hunger strike in prison or in jail. And he was 65 years old going on a hunger strike for months. So the political themes in the movie, he's drawing on some pretty personal experience of being imprisoned by the Iranian regime for his political views. So he didn't serve 6 years in prison. He served almost a year in prison. And he also did not stop working despite being banned from making films. So in 2022, his film No Bears, which I have not heard about and didn't see, but I would love to see now, it was shown at Venice, and it won the Special Jury Prize. This year, ahead of Cannes, Panahi said that although technically now the bans on his filmmaking and traveling have been lifted, he still had to make this movie pretty much in secret, break the law to make it, with a very limited cast and crew. So this was kind of made guerrilla style with a very small crew, very small cast. It was dangerous to make, and it comes off in the film in the most beautiful way. It feels so intense. It feels so slice of life, almost documentary style, which I love, but with the kind of with a little bit of campiness and humor that comes from it being fiction. And besides Panahi's history with the government making this film dangerous, it was also dangerous because the women in the movie are not always veiled. They're not always wearing the hijab, which is technically against the law. So the women actors, especially the actresses, were kind of putting themselves in danger acting in this movie unveiled. as heavy and as serious as the topic is, it just felt very real to me. It didn't feel like it set out to convince me of anything. It was really a human piece of art and storytelling. It made me feel really pensive about my own ideas of justice and forgiveness. Too often we kind of conflate the Middle East as a region and all of its problems to be like one kind of amalgam of oppression. And that's just not the case. Like obviously every country is different. I'm Lebanese. I'm from Lebanon. My whole family is from Lebanon. So I know my share of Middle Eastern political crap, but Iran is different. Iran has its own problems and its own people, its own language, its own culture. And as much as I enjoyed being like, oh, we have that too. Oh, that's so similar to us. I also, really enjoyed seeing the differences. It was good to see these regular people going about their lives and humanizing the idea of a political radical, humanizing the idea of a revolutionary, and kind of just looking at them as like, what if it was just all the rego people that you see every day? Because that's what it is. And it's one thing to know that intellectually, and it's another thing to experience it through a story and through characters. So I think this was really successful at that, kind of bringing everything back down to the most basic human level: connection, kindness, forgiveness, love, these very universal themes. So it was simultaneously really unique and specific, and then also so universal. A difficult thing to do, and it was done beautifully. It showed that there's no one like archetype or one personality of what a political revolutionary is, as we might often imagine in like dystopian media, like the chosen one, the firebrand. Instead, it was like there's all different types of revolutionaries who share the same ideology and have the same goals. There are sensitive people who are deeply, thoughtful. There's the artists, there's the politicians, there's the writers. People who have been hurt more intimately and more personally maybe are angrier or more violent. Like there are so many different ways of responding to the same kind of abuse and oppression by a government. I also found that Panahi as a writer and director was impressively feminist to me. I judge male filmmakers, I think fairly, but some people might say harshly, on their expressions of gender politics, gender ideas. And I really felt that the women in this movie, the women characters in this movie, were real women, real people with so much depth and, again, differences in their personalities and how they respond to these types of things. And they were neither held up as like a symbol of morality and purity, like women are nonviolent, women are peaceful, women are, generalized and put on a pedestal in that way, nor were they demonized as like women are scheming, women lie, and it's sad, like the bar is so low, but I just felt very refreshed by the depiction of these women. And I felt like I could feel the love, admiration, and appreciation for them from behind the camera. I think the female characters in this movie are by far like the hardest, the strongest, but again, not in a way where it like undermines how difficult that is for them. They also have the same complex feelings of rage and hurt and are allowed that same kind of like reckless abandon of emotion that the men have. And despite what must have been a very hectic moving set, a lot of this was shot like in the car, handheld, on the street, beautiful cinematography, really beautiful sound design. I noticed it was almost like a lot of the ambient sounds felt so ASMR, which I just love in movies. I thought the same thing about No Other Choice, maybe even more so in No Other Choice, that the sound design was like the most delicious, satisfying sounds to listen to. Thought that was the case here too. And the movie also used silence very effectively and used silence a lot. That was great. It felt really intimate and immersive. Basically, I love the movie. I think I gave it 5 stars, and I highly recommend everyone go see it if you can, and then come back so we can discuss spoilers. Just to address the elephant in the room, yes, I watched Heated Rivalry. Yes, I watched it 5 or 6 times all the way through. Yes, I showed it to all my friends. Yes, I rewatched it with all my friends at a cabin this weekend. Yes, I see all the memes. Yes, I see all the F1 Heated Rivalry crossover memes. Just, yes. Okay. I just feel like I need to let that be known. I always say this. I don't know if I always leave this in the edit in the podcast, but I often mention that I eventually would love to do like bonus episodes on like a Patreon feed or something, even if it's not behind a paywall, just like a separate feed, where I talk about like TV shows, books, reality TV, pop culture, and just kind of do like lighter hearted, less analytical stuff. The Heated Rivalry is one that I would absolutely talk about for at least an hour. I think there are like lessons to be taken from it for Hollywood, for Netflix, the production houses, about focusing on talent, focusing on story, not on marketing, not on bells and whistles, not on big names. Tale as old as time, fight as old as time, but Crave, Canada as a whole, thank you. Thank you for setting an example that we will probably not follow. But it's great to have it anyway. I don't know how you're listening to this episode, but I post full episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Patreon, and other places. I actually now post my videos on Spotify as well. Please leave me a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. It really helps people find the show and trust that it's of some value to click on. Like, comment, subscribe on YouTube. If you want to find links to any of my social media or podcast feeds, visit my website, moviesforbreakfast.com, moviesforbreakfast.com. I made it myself on Framer. Graphic design is my passion. I think it's pretty cool. Moviesforbreakfast.com. Moviesforbreakfast.com. Check her out. If you're here from Woodland, thank you for checking me out. Leave me a comment. Tell me you came from Woodland so I can thank him. The other episode I'm going to try to record today as well is tier ranking all of the 2025 releases I've seen this year. So I've been putting it off, trying to like tick off a few more of the new releases that I can include. And yesterday I knocked out 3 more. I watched Materialists, Twinless, and Oh Hi. So I'm going to call it as good as it's going to get. I'm going to do that episode. And then I figure any 2025 releases that I still haven't seen, I can comment on my own video and just tell you what tier I put them in. I can follow up. I can do follow-ups, but I just need to like at some point stop being obsessive, which is tough. But I think that'll be really fun. I've never done a tier ranking video before. I set up a little tier ranker thing. I'll have like a screen share, and it's kind of an easier, lower pressure way for me to express my opinions rather than like truly doing a pure ranking. I have a really hard time ranking things. I have a really hard time picking favorites. Everything is so different and deserves appreciation for different things. So the tier ranking, where I can say like, I like these about the same, I like those about the same, I can do that. So yeah, check that out. It might be more fun on video, but it'll work on audio too, I'll make sure. All right, let's get into the plot synopsis. Let's get into analyzing this work of art. So spoilers begin now. I just picture the Paul Revere meme of like, spoilers are starting now. Opening scene, we get a coincidental sighting and a moment of recognition that kicks off the action of the whole movie. First, we see just this man driving a car with his wife in the passenger seat. She's wearing full proper hijab. It's dark out. It's nighttime. There are dogs barking on the road and chasing after a car going in the other direction. There's some honking. The vibes are a little bit precarious. Suddenly, a little girl pops up from the back seat and she plays music really loud and is dancing with her stuffed animal and singing and jumping around. And she gets really annoyed when dad driving the car turns the music down. And she's like, we already have to be careful at home. Like, why can't I have fun? And you're kind of like, okay, why do they have to be careful at home? What does that mean? And the mom feels bad for her. She's like, all right, we'll turn the music back up. Kid keeps dancing. And then all of a sudden, the car hits something in the road and there's kind of this crunching sound, a pretty ominous crunching sound. So he stops the car and he gets out of the car, and it is exactly what we're afraid it is. We don't see it, but we hear a dog kind of whimpering. So he's hit a dog. And we're looking at this man. He's silhouetted and kind of backlit in red by the car. And he bends down out of the frame. And we just hear him dragging the dog's body. We don't see it. We just hear the gravel kind of dragging. And this is what I was talking about when I said like the sound design and almost the ASMR of it was really cool. If I remember correctly, and I could not, we know on this podcast it's very possible I don't remember correctly. But if I remember correctly, there was no music at this point. So it's dead silent. We hear like crickets, distant dogs barking, this dog whimpering, and just the sound of a body being dragged across the gravel. And we're just looking at the car on the side of the road and like in the distance, a skyline. He opens the car door, gets right back in, asks for a tissue, wipes his hands. Very nonchalant. The mom tells the girl not to stay by the window, to sit inside the car. So they're very on edge. The girl turns off the music or says like, no, turn the music off. I don't want it anymore. And confronts her dad. She says, you killed it. So she's no dummy little kid. Okay. She understood what happened. And the mom is like, you know, trying to kind of rationalize it and explain to her. She doesn't lie to her. She doesn't deny that he killed the dog, but she says like, sweetheart, you know, the roads aren't lit. It's pitch black out. We can't see the dogs. It was just an accident. Title drop pretty quickly. And she expresses sympathy. She's like, it's sad that these poor animals get killed, but you know, it wasn't our fault. And as she's talking to the girl saying all this, the camera stays on him and he looks very like stony faced. She then takes it even further and says, surely God put the dog there for a reason. There must have been some reason why that dog had to be killed. And the girl doesn't like this. I don't like this either. I think a lot of people would object to that reasoning. But she says, no, God didn't do it. God didn't kill that dog. God has nothing to do with it. Pretty profound for a little girl. But I do think that's like an instinct that gets taught out of you as a kid when something bad happens and adults try to tell you like everything happens for a reason or like there's God's plan behind this. God works in mysterious ways. I don't believe that personally. And I think sometimes bad stuff just happens. So when this kid was like, no, it has nothing to do with God, I was like, yeah, I agree with you. Sometimes things are just bad and there's no rationale for it. Or there's no greater purpose to it. But the car now starts to break down on top of having had to stop before for the dog. So the car breaks down and mom goes, there it is, another sign from God. He pulls the car over near like a big garage. A motorcycle pulls up to the garage, tells him like, okay, the nearest shop is pretty far away, but maybe I can help you. And he opens up the garage. He's a mechanic. That's his shop. I guess they were closed and he happened to come by and saw this guy. I'm not sure. Inside this mechanic shop, it's like a big kind of warehouse space. This guy on the motorcycle, his friend is on the phone upstairs and he's asking someone like, when are you going to bring the van back? I have to deliver the merch. Seems kind of sketchy. Like I thought it sounded like he was negotiating like a drug deal or something. The lights suddenly turn on in the warehouse and this guy who's on the phone turns around to be like, yo, like why'd you turn the lights on? But it's not the guy on the motorcycle mechanic. It's actually the mom and the girl and they're kind of like, oops, sorry, we're just looking for a bathroom. And then he continues his phone call and now he's saying like, I can't come now, mommy, you know, the van's not mine. And you're like, is he talking to his mommy or like now it seems like he's like covering what his real conversation is. And then we hear this weird kind of squeaky noise. Like it sounds like a sneaker dragging on a gym floor. And this guy on the phone, whose name is Vahid, kind of startles at this sound. And you see him looking out over the railing where he's sitting above. And he can see the man, the dad, pacing back and forth downstairs as he's waiting for his car to be fixed. And this was interesting. He doesn't see the dad's like face, I don't think. We are looking from his POV like up on the upper level of this like warehouse and you see the dad framed all around by like walls. I'm not explaining this well. Basically, you just see him from far away, kind of obscured in the shot, pacing back and forth. The mechanic working on the car sends the dad to ask Vahid, who's on the phone, for a toolbox. The dad calls out to him like, hey, Vahid, Omid said that he needs the toolbox. And Vahid hides and uses a fake voice to answer him and tell him where the tools are that he can get. So that's super sketch. As the guy's walking around, you still hear that squeaking noise. It kind of echoes the sound of the whimpering dog from when he hit it as well, almost signifying a weakness or a vulnerability. Like when an animal in the wild is hurt and whimpering, that's kind of what it feels like when this guy is squeaking as he walks, because it catches the attention of Vahid. And now you're wondering like, why is Vahid hiding from him? You know, what does he know? Is he now in danger from Vahid? Is Vahid scared of him? You don't really know what's going on. But Vahid seems terrified. He sees them start the car and pull away. The dad is like being super polite and chill with Omid. Omid is super chill with him. But as soon as they leave, Vahid runs down and he makes Omid give him the keys for the motorcycle and says like to meet him with the van at whatever location. So the family are driving away in the car and Vahid is following them on the bike. They're driving down all these like unlit mountain village roads. It reminded me so much of Lebanon, the mountains in Lebanon. It's kind of like, if you don't know where you're going, you're not getting there. You kind of got to know where you're going. But he tails them home. He lays in the dirt across the street. hidden, and we just see him dial on his cell phone and call someone. So very interesting opening scene. You don't totally understand who's afraid of whom, who's in danger from whom, what is the power dynamic here. I think it's interesting that the man is, like I said, squeaking with a similar sound as the dog that he killed was whimpering, so as to suggest like a weakness or vulnerability. But then at the same time, Vahid, who's watching him from above, which again, he's above looking down, he should be more powerful, but he's watching him from above and he seems terrified and he's hiding. So now we have this question that we want answered, which is like, what's the deal with these two? All right, so cut to daylight next morning. Vahid is asleep on the wheel of the van, same location, across the street from the house. His phone rings and he's watching the family car get towed out of their garage by a tow truck. He then follows the tow truck. Again, literally looked so much like Lebanon on these mountain roads they're driving on during the daytime. And they go from the more like suburban, quiet area to a kind of a busier street. The tow truck pulls the car up to a storefront on the side of the road. There's a stray dog, again, pacing across the road. Cars are honking as they pass because it's not getting out of the way. It has like no survival instinct. This scene is kind of confusing, but basically Vahid called the tow truck guy to tow the car so that the dad would have to go get the car. And then as the dad is like standing on the side of the road to claim his car back, Vahid drives up next to him, slams the van door open to knock him out on the side of the road, and then beats him with the shovel. So like kind of in broad daylight, but like you would have to be looking to notice it. It was off to the side of the road. Vahid is like manic. It seems like he's buzzing with energy. He is nervous. He's pissed off. He really whacks this guy. Shit is escalating already. We cut from him bringing the shovel down onto this guy to him digging with that same shovel in the middle of the desert somewhere what looks like a grave. He digs a grave. He throws the man in the grave and says, "I'm burying you, you filthy bastard." And Vahid starts just shoveling the dirt back over him as he's begging for his life. Vahid finally kind of explains to him and to the audience why he's doing this. He says he knows the name on this guy's ID card is fake. He recognizes him as Iqbal the peg leg is what they called him because he was the torturer. He tortured Vahid when Vahid was a political prisoner. And he knows that because he would recognize the sound of his squeaking fake leg anywhere. He says he remembers the atrocities. It's haunted him for years. So that's why he freaked out when he heard the squeaking. And also it wasn't just this guy's like shoe, because it wasn't clear until this moment what was squeaking. It's his prosthetic leg. Okay. And the guy is like, "What are you talking about? I have no idea what you're talking about. I swear I hurt my leg recently. I just hurt my leg in an accident last year. I'm going to the doctor today to get it checked out." It successfully plants enough of a seed of doubt into Vahid's mind that he goes to look at the leg himself. He pulls the prosthetic leg off and looks at the scar on his leg, and it does kind of look recent. It's like red and puffy and inflamed. I don't know anything about amputees. I don't know anything about amputee scars. So to me, I wasn't really sure what I was supposed to take away from the sight of it, but it did give maybe a little bit of credence to this guy's story. You know, now we are questioning Vahid along with Vahid questioning himself on his judgment. And we're going, is this the guy? Is he about to kill the wrong guy? So cut to a wide shot where we've got like the van on the right side, the grave on the left side, a lone scraggly little tree on the left side, and desert all around. And Vahid is leaning against the van smoking a cigarette, and the man is continuing to beg for his life. I loved these wide shots in the desert. It was very Western. It was cool. It was also a stark contrast to kind of the more like urban scenes, which were all in motion, often handheld, kind of shaky and chaotic. Partly, I assume, as an artistic choice, and partly as a practical necessity of filming this in secret. Whereas out in the desert, they were able to have this more like steady shot, steady cam setup. And you do feel that sense of like privacy and isolation based on the framing of that shot versus how it's shot in the city. It's also just like a beautiful landscape. So Vahid ties the guy up, puts him back in the van, and drives off. He's not sure. He's now not sure this is his guy. He goes to consult his old friend Salar. I I'm really sorry. I don't know how to pronounce these Persian names, and I just have them written down from the subtitles, and I don't remember how they were pronounced in the movie, so sorry for that. I think it was Salar. So he goes to this like bookstore looking for Salar, an older man. He's white haired. He asks Vahid about how his kidney's doing. Is his kidney okay? And that also explains, because we've been kind of seeing Vahid like flinch in pain a couple of times and pop some pain meds and like clutch his lower back. So now we know it's his kidney that's giving him trouble. Salar, his friend, is like, you need to go to the doctor. He's kind of paternal. He clearly cares a lot about Vahid. Vahid's like, yeah, okay, I'll do that. He throws the ID of the guy he kidnapped on the table and says, that's Pegleg. I have him in my van. Can you confirm for sure that it's him? So this guy was probably imprisoned with Vahid and also tortured by Pegleg. Salar is kind of, his first instinct is, disapproval. He's like, we don't do this. We're not killers. Even if that is the guy doing this, killing him is only gonna bury your ideals. He's like the angel on Vahid's shoulder whispering in his ear, like, don't do this. Vahid reminds Salar and tells the audience, this man took his dignity, took his wife, took his job. He just lost his mind when he saw him. He was just like overcome with rage. He saw red. Vahid says, look, I'm gonna do what I have to do, but I appreciate you. Thank you for always being there for me. And Salar's like, okay, well, if I can't stop you, call this number and do whatever she tells you to do. Okay, mystery boss. We're gonna go meet Shiva, my favorite. I loved this cut. This was a great cut. Salar says that line, do what she tells you. And then we cut to Vahid driving the car, and the GPS is like a woman's voice giving him directions. And it says like, turn right. And then he turns. I just thought it was cute. It was like him being obedient. He turns onto this very nice private tree-lined street. There's a wedding photo shoot happening at someone's beautiful house, like in the back in a courtyard. It's just the bride, the groom, and the photographer. The photographer is our girl Shiva. Shiva is dressed very casual, like cargo pants and a button-down top and a vest. Very kind of androgynous, especially next to the bride, who's in this huge poofy white gown. Especially because not only is she not wearing a veil, but her hair is cut short. It's undyed. It's gray. Immediately, I'm like, that is a cool, artsy, creative, is how she reads to me. She's kind of ignoring Vahid at first. She like takes a phone call, pauses the photo shoot to take a phone call, shushes Vahid. She is moving the couple to a new location, continues taking photos, and she kind of just leaves him waiting. Sort of felt like she was hoping he would disappear during that time, but he just like lights up a cigarette and he's like, I'm not going anywhere. And she's like, all right, Salar sent you. I trust him. For that reason alone, I'm going to hear you out. But like, make it snappy. Vahid says, isn't that woman the one you got arrested with? Referring to the bride. Interesting. She goes to blow him off again, and as she's walking away, he says, I found Pegleg. And that stops her in her tracks. She turns around. He says he was arrested 2 weeks after Shiva was arrested for collusion against the regime. He says, I read your investigation. I need your help to see if it really is him. She doesn't want any part of it. She's trying to live a normal life now. She doesn't want to get involved. He says Pegleg beat him so badly he can hardly walk without pain now. So now we've also confirmed that his kidney pain that we see him kind of reacting to, and we saw Salar mention, is a direct result of being beaten so badly in prison by this man who he thinks he might have in his trunk. She goes back to the balcony to keep taking wedding photos without kind of giving him an answer one way or another. We get a really cool shot from the ground in the courtyard looking up at the balcony where Shiva's taking photos of the couple. And you can see birds of prey circling and kind of cawing ominously. And you wonder, is that ominous for the captive in the trunk? Is that predicting his death? Is that ominous for Shiva? Because it's kind of above Shiva. Is that ominous for Vahid? Who are we worried about? But you just get the feeling of like, oh no, like something bad's happening. Shiva finally comes down to check the van. Okay. And Vahid is like, okay, don't speak. Don't say anything because he might hear you. So inside the back of the van, Vahid like lifts the top of this kind of coffin shaped box and Shiva looks in, and then back outside, Shiva asks him, are you sure it's him? And he's like, no. That's why I'm asking you. And she's like, well, what are you going to do if it is him? He goes, don't worry about it. And Shiva's like, I don't know if that's him. I was blindfolded. And I was kind of like, girl, why'd you even check if you know you're blindfolded? So now they're like looking at each other, like, what do we do now? And as this is happening, the couple approaches, and the groom, Ali, actually don't know if they have ayn, if they make that noise in Persian. I don't know if it's Ali or Ali. Can I look it up? Oh my God. I feel like I kept saying they were speaking Persian. They're speaking Farsi. I know that. I know that Farsi is the language. Guys, I swear to God, I know that information. Sometimes I just say stupid stuff on the podcast. Okay, yeah, they don't really have the ha as strong in Farsi as in Arabic. So I think it is more like Ali, like how you would say it in English, which is great because I don't feel like activating my ayn, Ali, when my throat's already hurting and I'm out of practice speaking Arabic. All right, no one cares. So he tries to intervene. He's like, dude, we're having our wedding photo shoot. Can you stop? And the bride, him, and Shiva get into it. The three of them are having a little powwow. Shiva tells the bride he brought the gimp, which is what their nickname for him was, as opposed to peg leg. And the bride basically like faints immediately. She collapses. The groom doesn't know what's going on. He was not arrested with them, it seems like. He's a diva. He wants his photos finished. The bride is like crying, screaming. She rushes the van. They get her to like quiet down first, and then they all go into the van together to look at the man. And Vahid closes the van door behind them. And we wait outside with Vahid, like we as in the camera. It's dead silent. You just hear like the crows cawing, the birds of prey from earlier, and the leaves rustling. And it's just very like, I know I keep using the word ominous, but I guess I'm struggling to think of a synonym. It was ominous, you know? The bride is Goli, and Goli says she has to know if that's him. He ruined her life. So she doesn't know either after looking at him, but she is now also invested in finding out if that's him. Shiva looks one more time and sniffs him in the box, and she's still not sure. This is where like the comedy really is this like kind of ridiculous repetition of people looking at him, coming back out and being like, well, I don't know. Do you know? I don't know. Do you know? And they're all now entangled in this because they all have a very personal connection to him. They've all been literally tortured by him. It's very emotionally charged. All of the trauma is like coming back up. And then you have Ali there who's just like, but our wedding's tomorrow. Goli and Shiva say only Hamid can ID this guy. We need to talk to Hamid. All right. Goli calls her mom. She says, I'll be home late, mom. Don't worry. Vahid takes all of their phones. The couple get in the back. Vahid and Shiva get up front, and the van drives away. Now we've got a gang together. Now it's like Scooby-Doo time. They're all going to go find Hamid. As they're driving away, the crows on the road scatter to make room. I titled this section of my outline, The Gang Runs Errands, because that's what it feels like. And I love movies like this. I love when there's just like a group together in a car on a mission, running errands, basically going to find people, meet people, solve problems. It's a really fun format. And as heavy, as serious as this subject matter is, there are so many moments of levity too. Goli, the bride, she didn't even change. She's in her full poofy, and it's a lot of poof. It's a lot of tulle on that dress, okay? She's in the whole shebang. The veil is on, makeup on, long brown hair, by the way, not veiled, styled down, extremely conspicuous. Ali, her husband, is like nervous Nelly number one. He's shitting his pants and he wants no part of this and he keeps complaining. And Goli, the bride, is like not moving an inch. She's sitting, oh, I love her. She was sitting in the van in her big gown with her knees wide, like unladylike, you know, not how you're taught to sit in a dress as a lady, but I love it. She's no longer present in the moment of her wedding, in the moment of her current intimate personal life. She has been transported back to her darkest memories. She's been transported back to being in the body of a political revolutionary whose body is under attack. And she sits differently and moves differently as a result. And I just think it was beautifully acted and equal parts ironic and lighthearted and deeply profound. First stop, they go to like a pharmacy / doctor's office, literally so Lebanon. One time when I was in Lebanon, maybe I shouldn't say this on the internet. Never mind. Shiva kind of very lazily, casually veils. She like throws a scarf on. And they go inside to see the doctor. They come back out. She got earplugs and sleeping pills for the guy in the back of the van who she calls the gimp. Back to the van. Next stop, they park again at Shiva's direction. She gets out and crosses the busy street alone this time. And the camera stays inside the van, kind of from Vahid's point of view, just watching her, you know, kind of weave through all the cars to get across the street. And then she comes back across the street, dragging with her a very begrudging looking Hamid. Hamid's annoyed. He thinks they're fucking with him. He's like, this is not funny. Don't joke about this. Cut to him in the back of the van, stroking the man's legs who's in the box, almost like tenderly stroking his legs. And then all of a sudden he flips and screams and basically lunges to strangle this guy and kill him. So Hamid has in fact confirmed he is sure that this is the guy, because he used to have to touch his leg while blindfolded as part of his like torture in prison. It's weird and we don't totally understand. Like, it seems like it may have been like a humiliation thing, like a degrading, like sexual humiliation thing. I don't know. But for whatever reason, like he had done that before, felt his leg before while blindfolded. So now he's the only one who can confirm by touch that it's the same guy. And he does confirm it. So Hamid's flipping shit. He's trying to attack. They have to drag him out. At this point, they're in like a parking lot, and as they're dragging out this like screaming, kicking Hamid, they're making kind of a scene, and there's two police officers who spot them, and you're kind of like, oh fuck, like this is bad. The police kind of waddle up to them menacingly, leisurely, like they're excited they happen to cross something interesting. Shiva tries to kind of deflect. She's like, oh, look, we're just taking wedding photos, and she like shows her camera, and Goli and Ali, and they're like in this like commercial parking lot, and she's like, yep, come on guys, like there's a great view over there, and they just like nervously start pretending to take pictures, which obviously is not super convincing. So the policemen are approaching the van to get a peek in the van, and Vahid like runs up in front of them and slams the doors shut. Again, very conspicuous. But you quickly realize like this is not about not getting in trouble for having a guy in the back of the van, because the police officers don't care. This is just about they're going to want to bribe, because the policemen are like totally uninterested in whatever very obviously shady shit is happening in the van. They just want money. Everyone looks at Ali, and Ali says he doesn't have cash. So they're like, well, we take card. So they hold up like one of those little like portable card readers and take a bribe via card from Ali, who has been begrudgingly dragged into this. The actors for the policemen, the whole bit is so good. It's again like really balancing the humor and the seriousness of it. I mean, having corrupt, inept police is not unique, obviously, to Iran. But yeah, just this like the way that everyone knew without speaking what was going on, knew what the police wanted. The police don't give a shit that they're probably murdering someone. It's that like bizarre, lawless world. The rules of the game are not explicit. The rules of the game are not consistent. You have to have the street smarts. You have to have the people smarts to like read a situation and navigate the situation. It's not like cop find crime, me hide crime. It's like cop want something from me. Oh, cop just want money? No problem, give money. Cop knows I murder. Cop don't care. You know, at this point, once they've dealt with the police, there's kind of too many cooks in the van. All right. Vahid wants to drop them and go solo. He's like, I got what I needed from you. We confirmed it's the guy. You guys can go. Like, I've got this. I started this. Hamid's not going anywhere. He's not going anywhere until that man is dead. Ali's like, great, let's go, babe. We're done here. And Goli's like, well, I'm not going anywhere. Again, she's sitting slouched like a gangster in her giant wedding dress, looking at her husband, her fiance, and shrugging, being like, I'm not going anywhere. You can stay with me or you can go alone. And so he gets back in the van with her. Vahid and Shiva share a cigarette, kind of alone on the side of the van, and you get the sense that like these are the adults in the situation, just because like Hamid is a hothead, he's a liability, he is bursting with violence, and then Goli and Ali, the bride and groom, are like quietly bickering this entire time, just continuing to bicker with each other. So you do feel like the kids are in the back of the van and Shiva and Vahid are the adults looking at each other, smoking a cigarette, like the two of us need to figure out what to do here. And I like both of them a lot. And we get kind of an open debate here about what everyone wants to do and thinks is the right course of action. So Goli wants to hear the man speak. She thinks she can identify him if they make him speak. Hamid wants to torture him. He's like, just let me get at him. I'll get the information out of him. Shiva says we shouldn't use violence back, more aligned with Salar, the friend who sent Vahid to Shiva. Hamid is appalled by that. He's like, are you kidding? They tortured us. What do you mean? Like, oh, we shouldn't use violence. They're really at odds. They're on opposite ends of the spectrum of like violence, non-violence. And you kind of understand where both of them are coming from. I can understand Hamid being exasperated by this idea of like, oh, we're better than that. We don't fight fire with fire. When you have been, I've never experienced any level of interpersonal violence like this. I don't know how I would feel. I don't know how I would react, but I do think that these characters are really good windows into how people do react in that situation. And yes, there's an element of like holding on to your ideals of not being violent, and that's beautiful and important and very sympathetic, but there's also an element of like, we can't ignore the hurt that's been done. We can't just like do nothing, seek no justice. What are you supposed to do? And I think it's very human and normal to want revenge, to want to return violence with violence. It's not like an evil thing to think or an evil thing to want. So this debate feels real. This debate feels like a real conversation between people, and it doesn't feel like one of them is crazy and one of them is sane. I understand both of them. I tend to align with Shiva more, but again, like I said, it's not, I'm not these people. I haven't experienced what they've experienced. On the topic of whether or not they should kill him, Vahid now finally comes clean and admits that, okay, he does know where I work. So, you know, if we let him go, that's a problem. And they're all like, what the F? Like, that means now we're all implicated if we let him go. Raises the stakes a bit. As if things are not messy enough, as they're driving down the highway, the car breaks down. And so they all get out and push it. And it's this wide highway, very busy, full of cars. Reminds me of Lebanon counter? Reminds me so much of Lebanon. But the car breaks down. The whole crew now gets out, pushing the van on the highway. You get like a wide bird's eye view shot. You see Goli in her wedding dress pushing the van. It's such an ironic image. It's so silly and bizarre. And it kind of shows like this misfit band of weirdos working together, trying to hold together like this shit situation and do something kind of stupid and reckless and impossible. And it feels like a visual metaphor for them all being politically aligned too. Like they're all such different people and they're all on the same side against the regime. But that's about all they have in common. Beyond that, they're just people at odds with each other. Hamid is even arguing with Shiva about trusting Vahid, saying he thinks he might be a spy, which I also thought was kind of understandable, but like frustrating because we as the audience know that he's not. Goli collapses and vomits from exhaustion from pushing the van and the heat. Vahid collapses from kidney pain. Hamid hops in the van and tries to drive off alone with the guy. Shiva jumps in front of the van to stop him. It's all getting crazy. Cut to that same location in the desert where Vahid had dug a grave, which we know because it's like the exact same landscape shot with the scraggly tree on the left. Basically, they're waiting for this guy to wake up so they can hear him talk so Goli can decide if it's him. Hamid is raging at all of them. At this point, I really wished I understood Farsi, if only to really understand these insults, because the translations, I'm sure they don't do it justice. Like, translating insults in a foreign language never quite works, okay? The meaning of it is not the same. But yeah, he's raging at everyone. Vahid is a half-wit. Ali is useless and a coward. Then Goli kind of has her turn at freaking out, raging, and she's explaining to Ali kind of for the first time what really happened to her, and it's horrible. But she says they put her in this room and she's blindfolded, and they say to each other, they discuss how they're going to hang her. So she's just standing there waiting to be hanged for 3 hours. Then he comes back in, this guy, Pegleg, 3 hours later and says, no, actually, it would be such a waste for her to die before someone used her body, basically, because she was a virgin. Horrific stuff. And she's sitting in front of Ali. She's kind of crouching in front of him, like almost on her knees, holding his legs while she talks to him. And it feels almost like it's her confession, like she's confessing something bad. But the way I understood it is like she knows that this man is a lot more kind of sheltered than she is. He hasn't gone through these kinds of things. And like she knows it will hurt him to hear that she was hurt in such a terrible way because he loves her. And also that it will scare him. Or at least this is my take on it. I don't think that she feels guilty. I don't think this is the kind of thing where she's like, sorry, I'm not a virgin for you. I think this is the kind of thing where she's like, I'm still me. Don't think of me like some kind of like broken victim. Don't be scared. Don't be freaked out. This is just like the truth of my life up until now. And you should know this. But I do think it's always scary to kind of tell a partner about any kind of like sexual trauma from your past or serious trauma in general if they've had a more sheltered and privileged life, because you don't want them to see you differently. But at this point, she kind of has to tell him because he's so confused and confounded and annoyed by this whole ordeal they've gotten themselves into. So she's like, okay, clearly I have to tell you so that you understand why this is so important to me and why I've kind of like gone crazy, quote unquote, over him. Okay. Meanwhile, Hamid reveals that, you know, while they were getting dragged naked from prison cell to prison cell, Ali's father was selling dollars on the black market. So Ali's family, his father, actually profited from the situation while they were being tortured. So he resents that and resents that Ali never put himself at risk. He calls him Ali the neutral. I actually love that line. He said it like while addressing him, like, you, Ali the neutral. I love the condemnation of being not political, being neutral. That's a choice. That's a political choice. To be an American right now and have, I mean, this is where I come across it the most, on your Hinge profile to have not political, that's a political choice. That is political. Nobody is not political. You know, you don't have to be like super obsessed with politics to be political. You exist. You think you just fell out of a coconut tree, you know, like you exist in the context of all that is and has come before you. There is no not political. And I appreciated this kind of like dig at Ali for that. Even though he does seem like a decent guy, he loves his wife, you know, he is there with them after all. But I totally understand that frustration at him of like, we suffered for what we believe in. You don't believe in anything. Fair enough. Hamid says they're all non-violent goody two-shoes. Shiva, we're at war. This is not a joke. Shiva goes so far as to say that the man is just a submissive to the machine. Ultimately, he's like a victim too. And Hamid is like, what the fuck are you talking about? And honestly, at this point, I was on his side. I was like, what are you talking about? No one who's like actively torturing you, tormenting you, raping people is just a submissive to a machine. Okay. It feels at this point like she's not just being noble or idealistic, but also like it's easier if she believes that. Like in a way it's a cop-out, and it's easier to think like, I don't have to hold anything against this person. They're just part of the machine, because it's more painful to face the truth of like, no, this man is rotten. This man has done really evil things. And it's not just like, oh, you know, we're all part of the machine. You know, it's harder to face the question of like, what do you do if he really is bad? What does justice look like if you don't believe in violence? Like, that's a really, really difficult question. And I feel like Shiva is kind of avoiding it because it's too overwhelming. Finally, Shiva's like, all right, whatever, fine. Then kill him. And they go inside the van, and the man's phone rings from inside the box, from like in his pocket. And Hamid is like, don't pick up. I presume because it could be, the location could be tracked, obviously. But the second time the phone rings, Vahid ignores him and picks it up anyway. And it's the little girl, his daughter, that we saw in the opening scene on the phone, begging for help. She's crying. Hamid is like, oh, it's just a trap. It's just a trap. But she says something about her mom. Her mom is like unconscious or I don't know what. So once again, bump in the road, detour. Ali is pressured into going along with it. They all get back in the van and drive back to that house where the little girl and the mom are. Okay. Vahid and Shiva alone go up to the house and ring the doorbell. Dogs are barking just like before. Trees are rustling. It feels like a very, very tense, scary moment. Like you don't know if the door's about to open and they're going to just be like shot. But they are willing to take that risk to help the innocent, presumably innocent wife and daughter of this man who they are thinking about killing. Back inside the van, they've got the mom. She's very pregnant. She seems passed out. Her water is maybe already broken. Like it's not looking great. They have her laying on top of the box that her husband is inside. And the women are talking to the little girl, trying to comfort her, as in like Shiva and Goli, are talking to her like, yeah, what kind of TV do you like to watch? Is this your stuffed animal? Just de-escalating the situation, making the girl feel safe and comfortable in this like very weird situation with a bunch of strange adults she doesn't know. And her mom passed out and her dad nowhere to be found. They go to a hospital. Vahid goes inside with the woman and the little girl. And the front desk lady is such a little piece of work. She's like, oh, sorry, like if you're not the father, we can't help you. Like the father has to be here for us to deliver a baby. And I thought, what an insane rule. What a terrible rule. And the crazy and scary thing is like I could see that or something like that happening in the US with all of the legislation and bans on abortions and control over women's bodies. It's like, how far away are we really from that same thing of like, you need the father of the baby present to receive medical care. It's just an extra layer of autonomy stripped away. The baby's in your body, the baby's in your uterus, but the man who put it there needs to be present for us to do anything to save you and the baby. Are you kidding me? I also, not specifically about needing the father present, but it's been very recently circulating like multiple videos of Black women in the US in hospitals, like 9.5 months pregnant, about to give birth, begging for medical care, begging for help with their lives and their babies' lives at stake actively. And then medical providers or like medical admin staff just looking at them like, oh, sorry, we can't. Sorry, where's your ID card? Do you have insurance? And it's like, what the F is going on? It's so disgusting. It's so a product of systemic racism and misogynoir. And it's been happening forever in the US. And the Black maternal mortality rates and the Black maternal health care data in this country is extremely shameful and embarrassing and horrific. I don't think we have a single toe to stand on to look at another country and say like, you guys hate women. and I hope that all Iranian women have their rights and their dignity and their freedom, and they deserve it, and it is being taken away. And I'm not like comparing that to America or denying it, but we can't hypocritically point that out and ignore what's happening at home, because shit's bad over here too. It's very scary. It's very scary to be pregnant in a lot of places in America right now. More than normal scary to be pregnant. It's scary in an existential way. And this moment and this scene in the movie really resonated with that fear of what we have going on over here. Anyway, the doctor comes out and he's a man and he asks the little girl questions like, how long ago did this happen? How long ago did mommy pass out? How long has she been pregnant? Whatever. And he just takes the woman on the gurney and is like, this is clearly an emergency. I'm going to treat her. You figure it out. Like, obviously this woman is doing her job and it's not her decision that that's the rule. And she's probably terrified to break the rule because of what the repercussions for her might be. I get that. I'm not saying like she's the devil. And a lot of times you need men to intervene and advocate for women because they are in the position of power in the patriarchy. And so this man, not only is he a man, he's also a doctor and she's like a receptionist. So he's obviously like given more respect in the hospital. And for him to step up and be like, I'm not letting this woman die. I thought that was really simple and powerful and beautiful. And again, like I'm thinking about all of the doctors, all of the American doctors who have taken risks to provide life-saving healthcare to women, pregnant women in this country, and girls, all of the doctors who have risked going to prison to save women's lives. And I just think it must be a really hard time to be a doctor. It must be a really hard time to be an OBGYN right now. Vahid goes and pays himself at the front desk, and he sits with the girl in the waiting room. Eventually, presumably like maybe hours later, I don't know, a nurse comes out. It says, it's a baby boy. It's okay. Everyone's okay. And she kind of like hints that she wants a gift from Vahid, or like a gift is customary. Just like the police officers, that kind of like, you have to give us money. Obviously, this is different. She doesn't have a gun to him, but like these cultural rules, they can make you feel pretty strongly that you have to do something. Even if it's not a gun to your head, it can be like, well, it's really like in Arabic, we have the word aib, like shameful. You have to bring pastries to a child's birth. I mean, you just have to. And it really does feel like you have to. So he goes to find pastries to bring and get a cash tip for the nurse. This is like Hamid's final straw. The fact that Vahid is not just did all of this and brought the woman to the hospital, like, okay, that's one thing, but is now wasting more time implicating all of them in this more by like lingering the van outside the hospital while they're all waiting, and then going to buy pastries and take out cash for the nurse. He's like, this is insane. He turns on Shiva and it gets more personal, and he says like, you run away from me. You weren't there when my mom died. And she yells back something that was like kind of mean, but maybe he deserved. Sorry, I don't totally remember the exacts here. My notes got a little bit faster, but it was a little bit weird. Like Hamid dipping at this point and going away was a bit confusing, like for his character. And also I don't totally remember when or how Ali and Goli left, but they're gone too. And my suspicion is that this sort of clunky, awkward plot development where it's just Vahid and Shiva with the man, I think that might have been clunky and awkward because of how they had to film this in secret. Like, it's totally possible that they had to retroactively write in an explanation or write in a fight for why Hamid ran away. I don't know. Maybe some of the actors like were being followed or like needed to be more careful. Really, I don't know, but I'm inclined to give them grace for anything that feels a bit like a weird post-production choice or like a weird gap, because I think this movie was like much harder logistically to put together than a typical movie. So I don't super care. Okay. And then there were two. It's Vahid and Shiva. And he tells her like very earnestly, listen, you can go. I will not hold it against you. You've already done a lot. This is my problem. I started this. You can go. And he goes inside to deliver the pastries and the money. The little girl is like slumped, sleeping in the waiting room with her stuffed animal. And then when he gets back out to the van, Shiva is still there. She says that she made Salar a promise and she can't just abandon him. So that was nice. And I was kind of relieved because I was like, Vahid, I actually don't think you can handle this on your own. I actually kind of think Shiva does need to stay. It's nighttime now. We're shooting from the POV of inside the van on the dark road. Again, we have like stray dogs barking, similar to our opening scene, kind of full circle moment. Vahid stops the van and he and Shiva, they're looking at each other in profile and silhouette. He gets out. We get another very like ASMR feeling sound design scene here, much like that first scene where it's dark and they're driving at night. All you hear is like the van humming, gravel crunching, dogs in the distance barking. Like part of me was worried that they accidentally killed him with the sleeping pills or something, because he had been out this whole time, but he's still alive. He's still in there. But Vahid takes him out of the van. He starts fighting him and they get into like a tussle. Shiva comes out for backup and knocks him out with the shovel and basically saves Vahid. Vahid's kidney is killing him, especially after that fight. And he says he's surprised Shiva had it in her because she's so against violence, she's been saying. And she's like, yeah, but I'm not a coward and he would have killed you. So when it comes down to it, when push comes to shove, yes, she's nonviolent, but she's not going to let her friends die, you know. Cut to, they're captive. This guy is now tied to the base of a tree right next to the van. And Vahid dumps some water on him to wake him up. Okay. The red lights, the tail lights from the car, from the van, light up his face. And it, again, evokes that same image as the first scene when he hits the dog and gets out. And now as he's begging, Vahid is no longer doubting who this man is. He knows who this man is. Because he says something like, please, like, in the name of all the saints, let me go. And Vahid's like, yeah, I remember you saying that. I remember you used that expression because you used to tell us when you beat us and tortured us that it pained you to do so. You know? So he's recognizing the way he speaks. Vahid himself, he says he never would have hurt a fly before the torture. But, quote, you made me into a bastard. You killed me 100 times. I'm a zombie. You hung me and I pissed myself. He says his fiance killed herself because of what he did to her. And this man is still playing dumb and saying, like, I have nothing to do with this, let me go. But at this point, you know, in the face of such accusations, his denial seemed way too calm and almost half-hearted. And I fully, at this point, was convinced that he was the man. Vahid said something about his son. And he's like, well, I don't have a son. So there you go. You have the wrong guy. And he goes, actually, you do have a son. He was just born. And I took your wife to the hospital. So I know that. The guy then freaks out that Vahid touched his wife. And Vahid is like, well, calm down. I didn't hurt her. Not everyone's like you. I just helped her. At this point, finally, the man is like, all right, listen. Yes, I'm Ekbal the peg leg. And he kind of laughs, doubles down. He says, I'd give my life for the regime. I lost my leg in Syria. We have thousands of martyrs. That's all I care about. In terms of his wrongdoing, he says, you either deserved your punishment or you didn't, and justice will be done in heaven. So that's kind of his perspective on justice and righteousness is like, well, if I tortured you by accident, you know, I guess they'll get me in the afterlife and you'll have fun in heaven. So don't even worry about it. Don't kill me. It's bizarre. It's totally a cop-out and has nothing to do with what I think justice and fairness is. And I don't know if this man really believes it himself, but he has convinced himself of it. And it's probably what the regime told him and what they tell each other and how they train these interrogators or torturers to desensitize them to the pain and the harm they're causing. It's a type of like cult, what they call thought stopping cliches. So that like phraseology, you either deserved your punishment or you didn't, and justice will be done in heaven. There's no response to that. Like, it's not very logical. So you can't argue with it. You can't counteract it. It's just meant to keep you from thinking any more critically about what you're doing to other people. Okay, guys, my video cut out for like 20 minutes. So I think I gotta go back. I'm gonna repeat some things I just said. I was saying that I liked how the camera was steady on Ekbal tied against the tree while Vahid kind of orbits around him, because in this moment, it's a bit more about Ekbal. We're learning his psyche and we're learning his honest truth now that he's finally admitting that it was him. And everything Vahid is doing and reacting to is ultimately kind of centered on Ekbal. But when Shiva finally has her turn and she's kind of interrogating him, the camera does center on her more and follow her if she moves. And her face is always in the shot because then it's about Shiva. On a spectrum from like violent and reactive to nonviolent and calm, I would say you have Hamid, Goli, Vahid, Shiva. Ali the neutral, not included in the spectrum. Hamid and Goli are gone. Now it's Shiva and Vahid. Vahid started all of this. Vahid has finally had like his kind of closure, at least in that Ekbal admitted the truth after Vahid has kind of been going crazy because he was sure it was him, but then he doubted it was him. Then he had to ask all of these people for reassurance. And now finally this man has confirmed it. Okay. But what we've really been waiting for is Shiva to break. She is the last of them to have a meltdown and a loss of control. Every single one of them has already flipped out at some point. But Shiva finally has at him. She crouches down in front of him against the tree and she's whispering in his ear and like slapping him, not that hard, but like smacking him across the face, like the way that you would scold someone. Like she's scolding him for bad behavior, not even like, you know, beating him up. The way that she addresses him is like with total authority. And she says, you want to be a martyr? Because he had said like he would die for the regime. You want to be a martyr? I'm the angel of death. I'm here to grant your wish. Bars. And she's like whispering in his ear all the things he did. She keeps forcing him to apologize, say sorry, say sorry, say sorry. And he's like, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. And then finally they both kind of slouch against the tree, sobbing and screaming in this like pure catharsis where it's, you know, out of context, you would almost think that they were on the same side, just grieving and screaming together. But it's really just finally Shiva getting her moment of freely expressing all of her rage and grief and feeling it without having to like rationalize it, without having to intellectualize it, without having to bring it back to her ideals of nonviolence. It's like just for this moment, face to face with this man, she has let herself feel all of it, and it's overwhelming. And for his part, being confronted with this human being and being confronted for wrongdoing, for his torture, he also breaks down. And it's like the mask finally slipping after so long of lying and pretending and hiding and being wound so tight, like we saw him in the opening scene in the car. So he is crying and he says, when you refused to confess, I thought you were making fun of me like when I was little. Obviously, there's no explanation for torture. Like, there's no, you know, rationale that would make it make sense, but it brings us back to this theme I've talked about a lot this year, and I've seen in a lot of movies in 2025 that I really like, which is like the idea of self-victimization and self-pity. They think they're better than me, you know, they have their ideals. Why won't they cooperate? They're making fun of me. Like, no, you're not the victim in the situation. You have them tied up, they're starving, they're blindfolded, they're scared, they're in pain. Obviously, you are in the position of power, but if you can rationalize and turn it around and kind of pervert it into somehow you're the victim, then it doesn't, you know, feel so wrong, and it doesn't feel so inhumane to do these terrible things to them. And so that's what was going on in his head. And I think it's a true reflection of what happens in a lot of people's heads who do terrible things. It's like a twisted view of everything that you can be holding a baseball bat, hitting someone with it and saying like, it's so unfair that you're making me do this. I don't want to do this. I'm the victim. No, you're not. No, you're not. Okay, so he finally is just fully screaming, I'm sorry, over and over again. And he's begging to see his son, who was just born. He says, please, I just want to meet my son. Please let me see my son. Please let me live. And I think in this moment, Vahid and Shiva are finally confronted with their hypocrisy too, because in this moment where he's tied up and blindfolded against the tree, begging for his life, begging to see his family and his son again, he is now showing them a reflection of what they felt when they were being held prisoner and tortured by him. So they can't. It goes back to what Salar said of, if you kill him, you'll just be burying your ideals. And I think when they're really confronted with that image of him, the appeals to wanting to see his son and his family again, and they just saw this baby be born and they know that little girl, it's a lot harder to kill him. And I think, you know, Vahid knows that he knows where he works and that if they let him go, he may very well find them and kill them. I think what Vahid thinks is, I would rather him find me and kill me than me kill him and live the rest of my life with that blood on my hands and with the knowledge that I'm just as bad, whether or not he really is just as bad, you know. But I think that's so human. He's so consumed the whole movie by his rage and fear and grief. And so he's oscillating between these moments of like murderous intent, true murderous rage and intent, and then back to who am I as a person? I can't do that. I'm not that. It just feels very honest and nuanced, and it's not so black and white of like what's fair, what's not. They don't know. They don't have an answer to what's fair. They don't have an answer to what is justice, what this man deserves, but they're choosing not to be the arbiter of it. They're choosing not to make that decision and live with that choice. And it's not entirely, you know, heroic or selfless, I don't think. It's also just knowing that you don't want that on you. You don't want the blood on your hands, which I totally understood. I understood why they left him. So Vahid unties him and leaves his papers there and says, you can go, and they drive off. And I wrote down in my notebook, I was like, I'm terrified. He's going to kill them, right? Like he's going to find them, right? They just drive away. Leave him on the tree. Cut to Vahid is helping his mom load up the van with like pillows and linens and towels and stuff for his sister's trousseau, which he had talked about on the phone with his mom in that like warehouse scene. So this is just the next day or a couple of days later, right? This is like pretty recent after what we just saw. And of course, there's like the irony of loading up the van with all these things. A trousseau, by the way, when a woman gets married, it's household items, linens, towels, pillows to bring to her new house with her husband. So it's all of these like nice, clean, white, fluffy, feminine things in this van that just days ago had a man imprisoned in it and very nearly a murdered body in it. And it's like we saw Ali and Goli's wedding photo shoot, like weddings, marriages, babies. We're seeing all of these like slivers and moments of normal life. And I feel like there's a through line there, and there's a reminder of like, what is humanity and life really about? It's not about the country. It's not about the government. It's not about prison. It is about family and hopes and dreams and a life. And they keep coming back to that as a way to center themselves in the chaos of the political turmoil. Ultimately, if a little child calls out for help, her mom is in danger delivering a baby, okay, now that's what matters. Ultimately, if your sister's getting married, you're there no matter what you've just been through, and you're helping your mom prepare stuff for her. And you're going to go to that wedding and you're going to smile. I think that Jafar Panahi has that point of view based on some of his interviews as well, and the way he speaks about Iran. I think ultimately he is political because he has to be, in the same way that these characters are. But really, he's just an artist and a human who wants to tell human stories. And Iran is so much more, and Iranian people, Persian people are so much more than just politics and war and conflict. It's just that stuff is inevitable when you're trying to live your life and do normal life things. I liked that constant weaving in of normal family culture life stuff throughout this otherwise quite serious and potentially violent story. But as he's carrying things out to the van, he goes inside to get more stuff, and he starts to go to walk up the stairs. Okay, and the camera's following him from behind. And suddenly he hears that peg leg squeak, the same one we heard in the warehouse in the beginning. And it's dead silent. Like I said, with that very crisp, very precise sound design, it is silent, but for those little squeaks, and you can hear it getting a little bit louder, like he's approaching. Okay? Vahid just freezes. We just see him from behind frozen, and the hairs on the back of my neck stood up. I had goosebumps. I was riveted, terrified. The camera is, I think, steady, not handheld, but it just slowly, just barely gets closer in on the back of Vahid's head. From like a filmmaking point of view, I think this was so simple and brilliant in that we finally feel what they have all described feeling when they were imprisoned, which is like being blindfolded and hearing the squeak of his leg approaching. We got a taste of that, where we're kind of blindfolded by the restriction of the camera, and we hear that squeak coming, and we feel that uncertainty and fear that they felt, and that certainly Vahid is feeling in this moment. And then it sounds like it's so subtle and so ambiguous, you can't be sure, but it does sound like the squeaking then fades back away. It gets really close and then it fades away. And then suddenly it just cuts to black to the credits, and instead of the squeaking leg, you hear a bird chirping, like a high-pitched bird chirp. And it sounds a whole lot like the leg squeak. It's like the same frequency as the leg squeak. And so then you're kind of like, whoa, did I just hear what I think I heard? Was that Ekbal? Did he approach and then retreat? Is Vahid paranoid now and he thought that he heard him, but it was really just this bird? Does the bird represent the fact that this ordeal and this boogeyman of a man has finally been released and Vahid is now free of it, like a bird uncaged? People are going to make fun of me for that one, but that's off the dome, guys. I don't know. And then even if we did hear him approaching and leaving, what does that mean? Did he come with the intention to kill Vahid and then saw him doing his sister's trousseau, was reminded that he's also a human with a family and a life, and changed his mind and left? Did he come knowing he wasn't going to kill him and just wanting to send the message of like, I'm going to leave you alone on purpose? We don't know. But yeah, like I said, from interviews with the director and my impression, my read of the movie's point of view in general, I get the sense that we are meant to think that Iqbal spares Vahid and Shiva, and I guess also Hamid and Ali and Goli, if he could have tracked them down too, in exchange for sparing him and taking care of his wife in childbirth. And then you see this outcome where instead of an eye for an eye, instead of torturing and killing this man the way that he tortured them and killed some of their loved ones, they let him live. They let him procreate. They saved his baby and returned him to his family. And then he let them be too. Not only let them be, but confessed and apologized and gave them some sense of closure of that kind of like really raw, unhealed trauma. Now this outcome is like two positives. You know what I mean? Like he has been saved and maybe he has been in some ways like forced to confront his own wrongdoing, and maybe he'll change as a person. I don't know. Maybe he won't. I would like to think he would never torture people again after this experience and being so confronted with it and being given a second chance at life. It's kind of like the ultimate win over him is to be like, you hated us because we wouldn't abandon our ideals. Now, the only reason you're alive is because we wouldn't abandon our ideals. So what does that do? What does that do to your perception of the revolution and of the regime? Like it must shake you a little bit. But anyway, it's really not about him. It's about Vahid and Shiva, especially continuing their lives, knowing that they're not killers and knowing that this man is not coming to kill them. And it just kind of being done with. The message is all about hope, redemption, and ultimately peace. Ultimately, everyone wants a peaceful, safe life with their family. It is not that complicated. What's been done can never be taken back, can never really be, in my opinion, forgiven or absolved, but it's done now and they can start to build something new. Everyone can start to build something new out of the ashes. And I think it's a very beautiful, tender, hopeful message. So yeah, if you couldn't tell already, I obviously really, really loved and enjoyed this film. Definitely one of my favorites of the year. 5 stars. Very memorable. If you made it to the end of this episode, you spent more than an hour with me hanging out, please leave me a 5-star rating on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. If you're on YouTube, like, subscribe, comment. But anyway, thank you for listening. Let me know what you thought of this movie. Bye.